All right. Welcome to the podcast, Wystan.
Good to be here. Thanks for inviting me. Glad to be
Absolutely.
talking.
Yeah, super stoked. Yeah, I do want to just start out sharing with everyone listening a little bit about your practice, some of the different lineages you pulled from, kind of anything relevant to share context about who you are.
Yeah, sure. Brief bio. I was miserable. I found the Dharma. I started to practice. I practiced hard and a lot in Theravada, Zen, and most of the time these days, I'm occupied within Vajrayana and Dzogchen personally. And in terms of my own teaching activity, I mainly draw from early Buddhist tradition, Pali material, and the broad kind of Theravada sweep, and weave in some of the later non-dual aspects. And that's kind of my focus and my activity at present.
Amazing. Beautiful. Um, so yeah, where shall we go? You've been doing a lot of practice with what am I trying to say? Actually, let's start here. I would love to talk about Jhana a little bit. Um,
Let's get into
so
it.
let's get into it. Let's get into it. So this has been like fascinating to me recently, like that this one exists and that it's actually like attainable, or it's something that is not like completely in the realm of like very hard to realize. And you've spoken a lot about Jhana, like how I would love to hear first maybe your sense of like why would one practice Jhana? Like what would this actually do for someone in as they're going about their daily life, And what can this how can this transform a person?
Sure. So a person can, with less effort than most people think, but a reasonable amount of effort and training and practice, learn to reliably enter and master and gain fluency in incredible states of ease, bliss, peace, spaciousness. And you can reach the kind of mastery and fluency that it's as easy to traverse this conscious state space as raising your fingers or playing an instrument that you know well. And you can begin every morning by spending an hour drenched in bliss that far outstrips any ordinary sensory experience that you would otherwise have potentially in any other aspect of your life. This is doable. You can do that. It's a skill. You can learn it. You can master it. You can deepen it. And there's a whole broad spectrum of depth and breadth of jhana practice. And canonically, there are 8 states of progressive kind of dereification, losing the thingness of things as experience becomes at first more energized and ecstatic, and then more peaceful and calm and spacious, and eventually formless. And then at the very far extreme end, you may end up having all of perception cease. Yeah,
Fascinating.
and that completely transforms one's relationship to sensory experience. At first, transiently, and then ongoingly, your baseline experience of what it is to be a person in a world. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, all of that radically changes, notably in the desirable case of awakening occurring. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, I've been fascinated with like how I'm curious to hear your sense of like renunciation can be like deeply pleasurable or deeply like fulfilling. And I think we have the kind of conception that like renunciation is like I want this thing, but I'm not gonna let myself have it or something, and it kind of sucks. But it seems like with jhana, it's like actually the opposite. It's like we're kind of renouncing sense pleasures and sense desires, but it's actually like in a deeply like enjoyable, fulfilling way where it's like, oh, this is just much better than what I would get out there or something.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of the logic of and the engine of early Buddhist style renunciatory practice, um, is we spend most of our time and effort as human beings, moment to moment, day to day, we over weeks, months, years, decades, um, reaching and grasping outside of ourselves for transient objects of affection and fascination, whether that's people, relationships, job, status, material things. And oh no, all of these change. You might not get what you want. You get what you want, but you find that you don't actually want it that much anymore, or you change and impermanence. And jhana, likewise, these altered states, these are impermanent conditioned states, but because they are not dependent on anything more than your body and your nervous system and breathing, um, you can so collect and cohere your mind and body and breath and attention and awareness that you become steeped, saturated, and suffused very literally in all of the usual energies that would be flowing outwards and grasping and avoiding things in the world, quote unquote. Um, and yeah, just in terms of raw hedonic tone, uh, deep jhana beats anything that you could get otherwise. Forget awakening for a second. Just in terms of like raw hedonism, uh, putting more time into jhana is a better return, better ROI to be crude about it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. And it seems like with little side effects. I don't know if there's side effects in your view, but it seems to me like there's not too many negative side effects of this other than
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the person. I mean, both insight and deep samadhi can radically destabilize a person's perception and
okay.
experience of energy within the body. They may find their wants and desires and changing. They may become, not fundamentally a different person. It's not like your inborn tendencies are worn off at any point. But you'll find one way or another, you'll find that you're not the person you thought you were. You're not the thing. The world isn't how you thought it was. And your relationship to things has been confused. And that can be a painful, difficult, destabilizing process.
I see.
Um,
I see.
and you can with jhana or other kind of intensive practices, there are risks and hazards. You can trend in a manic direction. You may have hallucinations and visions. These are not uncommon. Um, yeah, but
Yeah.
all that said, with with caveats, and appropriate container and guidance and feedback and community and grounding and normalization of all of these range of effects.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel comfortable recommending jhana to just about anyone. I mean, unless they're in an acute period of destabilization. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and also,
Beautiful.
um, jhana may be more stabilizing, actually. It's one of these things where it's like a potent. If someone gets deep into samadhi, depending on what else is going on in their psychology and their life, that may further destabilize, or it may really stabilize and ground the person. So
Yeah.
it's really, you can't say anything too general.
That makes a lot of sense. I think maybe I was taking my personal experience and like imparting it as a principle, but my experience with Jhana has been that it's made life reliably better and like more stable and just like
That is the majority of people's experience, and certainly over the long term. Yeah, I don't personally know any exceptions to that.
amazing, amazing. Um, I think this routes us. You wrote a little tweet or thing on Substack recently about calming the adversarial relationship with experience. I would love to touch on this a little bit. I think you were like touching on the importance of compassion and like just deep kind of friendliness and warmth. For some context, after like really discovering Burbea and some of his teachings, I've kind of realized that I spent the last 10 years of my practice in this like deeply adversarial relationship within meditation that was just causing enormous amounts of suffering while on the cushion. And then it's kind of like this crazy paradigm shifting moment of like, wait, I can actually soften and actually feel better. And insight can come through that. And it was just this wow moment. And then when you wrote that, there was deep resonance with me. Like, yeah, that feels good. So I'd love to hear you speak a little bit more to that. And given that you've had a lot of experience with like Zen and some of these like very intensive, like how does that actually combine? Because my experiences within Zen when the conditions weren't right, that's like this suffering was extreme. And now there's a curiosity, like, could the softness be brought into that like deeply rigorous container? How?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, not too tight, not too loose, right? There's a famous simile with the lute player. If you tighten the string too much, it snaps. No good. If you let it too loose, you can't draw a bow across it. You can't pluck it. It's not going to make a sound. Practice is like this. Uh, and certainly a lot of us are bringing like why are we motivated to practice? Because we're dissatisfied, by and large. That's the motivation for many people.
Yeah.
Or at least part of the mix certainly was for me. I was miserable. Um, and wrapped up in that, it's like, okay, there's this thing, practice, and if I do it well and if I accomplish it, I'll be a good person and I'll fix myself and I will solve my problems. And if I don't do it right now, it's my fault and I'm bad and it's because I'm doing it wrong. And I gotta whip myself to get going faster. Like, come on. And that can be reinforced by traditional language and framing, which in the kind of sharp directness, I actually appreciate quite a bit and was very motivating in a helpful way. But in the way that it interacted with my own psychology, and I know interacts with many people's psychologies, it's not you can take on the kind of sharp, critical view and lens, which can be helpful of really cutting through a whole lot of bullshit that we occupy ourselves with much of the time. That's good. And also taking that on past an initial kind of like shock and wake up call, and then fabricating like, oh, I'm such a bad meditator. Oh, I'm not, I'm a bad practitioner. Oh, I'm not able to focus on the breath. Therefore, that implies something flawed or wrong with me. No, 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 no. This is exactly the same. Like if you people do the same thing with exercise or other domains of skill, right? It's like, yeah, you're going into the gym and you're sore and it hurts and you can't. Your range of motion is not so great, and you are having a hard time lifting heavy weights. Yeah, this isn't something inherently flawed or wrong with you. It's just you're embarking on a path of training, and it's a little rough and uncomfortable at the beginning. It's like the foundation, the fertile soil in which you can thrive and grow and develop is one of love, care, and compassion for yourself. You want to be exercise and be healthy because you love and care for yourself, and you want to maintain your health and well-being and flourish and be available, and awake and alive, and present, right? Like exactly the same with the path and practice. Um, the motivation, the wish to practice and to practice well actually arises inevitably from bodhicitta. Switching over to Mahayana framing here, it's the acknowledgement of pain, of discomfort, of dis-ease within oneself, and the desire to do something, to train, to see through, to let go. That is itself already a compassionate impulse. And speaking from personal experience, you can inflict a whole lot of totally unnecessary suffering, by concretizing a view of oneself as not doing it right, or not doing it fast enough, or not doing it well. Um, and you wanted me to talk a little bit about like more rigorous training containers in Zen and so on. Should I go on that, or do you have anything to respond?
I'm curious, maybe the kind of sub question there was something like for most like average Western meditators, it seems like this is a common occurrence that something gets very constricted in the relationship to practice. And like especially Zen, like with if you have zero context as a Westerner and then you go into Zen, it's like my sense is like that's probably the most likely outcome is there's just gonna be this like really constricted, I'm not doing this right, this is so hard. Like and so I think maybe the sub question was like how does one approach practice in a way that like is that just a necessary stage and then you just realize how much suffering that is and then you find a better way, or is there a way to actually like kind of from the start have a more skillful entryway into meditation?
Oh, I think from the start you can have a more skillful entryway, and often that can be best clarified and worked out in relation with someone who can see and reflect back to you the kind of unskillful way that that the parts of yourself are interacting and viewing the endeavor, right? And someone that can meet you with the kind of warmth and invite you to do the same.
Mhm.
um, and the every all of the issues that we have in the rest of our life, in the patterns of our psychology, we will inevitably bring to practice in some way. And you can work through that skillfully sooner rather than later. So if you're someone who's very achievement oriented and you define your identity by your and your status and relative identity in comparison to other people in terms of your skill, right? That's going to show up in meditation. If you feel like you're not enough, you've never been enough, that you're a failure, that's going to show up in meditation. If you feel like you're hot shit and top of class and always the best, that's going to show up in meditation. If you're very skilled in a kind of conceptually freighted domain and you're used to being very adept, and you find, oh, there's this non-conceptual embodied practice of attention, breath awareness that is just kind of orthogonal to my cognitive sophistication and skill, that might be very frustrating because it's just not the same. So, so holding all of that in care and understanding, and also, this is largely why these days when I'm working with folks, unless they have a really strong preference or a desire to do something else, I will make sure that everybody has a foundation in Brahmavihara before anything else. Because if you don't have a kind of internal warm container for practice and a positive regard for what you're doing and yourself and your effort, it's just going to be a slog, and it doesn't need to be.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
not that you don't need to be diligent and persevere and move through hardship, absolutely, and not that a kind of cutting approach can't be helpful sometimes, even from a teacher, right? Like in a Zen context, I've benefited quite a bit from some of my teachers very directly and very uncomfortably pointing out some things that are not too flattering. And also to have that critical self-regard as well, that is firm and direct and can be sharp, but that's coming from compassion. It's not coming from a kind of concretized shame or whatever it may be.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. I've had that sense that like a lot of meta is probably good for most people starting out or something. Like it's gonna probably do more good than trying to cut through immediately or something. Um,
Yeah, that doesn't work for most people.
yeah, I mean to share some context, like my experience was like kind of being enamored with insight and kind of starting with that, and it, like I said, like brought a lot of suffering to the point of um yeah, like that felt very destabilizing to me in many aspects, and spent some time at monastic academy and was basically just doing insight the whole time I was there, and it kind of like a little bit of a mental breakdown happened, and I was just like it was too much, like I just couldn't. There's too much like agitation and just like restlessness that just kind of was like a pressure cooker. And my sense is that more meta probably would have softened that and stabilized that a little bit.
Yeah, like warm, caring, loving samadhi and having that relationship to yourself and deepening that way is, yeah, it's hard to go wrong there. At any stage of the path.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, yeah, maybe this brings us into this some I don't know how pervasive this perception is, but it seems to be pretty pervasive that like metta is like less of a practice than like anatta or something like that. And so I'm curious, I would love to hear from you around like how does metta actually deepen insight, or how do these Brahma Viharas and samadhi, I guess that kind of broadens it a little bit, but like how does that lead into insight, or if one starts with Brahma Viharas, is it helpful to like make these really strong distinctions between insight and kind of absorption practices, or does the deepening into this meta just inevitably create more fertile conditions for insight, and if so, how?
Yeah. No, to start at the end, yes, I think the Brahmaviharas will inevitably make deepening samadhi. Well, also if you're practicing them, uh, they are themselves forms of deepening into samadhi, and they will set up pretty ideal conditions for insight to occur. Um, and so, say you start with something like metta. You're the average modern person. You've got quite a bit of restlessness, some habits that you'd like to drop off, worries, concerns, regrets, etc. You sit down to meditate, and oh. All of that comes up. It's hard to sit still. Your attention is jittery. Your emotions are unsettled. Your nervous system is dysregulated. Right. That's where most people start. Long breath out. Bringing the system down
Mhm.
and then feeling into the heart using whatever scaffold is necessary. Just even just the tiniest little spark of warmth that you can actually rest with. A kind of gentle, soft, sweet, easeful relief of feeling into the warmth and goodness of your own heart.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, that's kind of foreign to many people, even that much, right? But just starting there and letting that, like a fire, grow brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. And then eventually, deepening. I'm just going to outline a kind of arc with metta. The same could be said of other Brahmaviharas.
Sounds good.
It builds and your mind becomes more coherent and kind of synchronized with that embodied somatic emotional experience of metta. And it may begin to radiate or expand beyond the kind of flickers or instability into something more stable, expansive, energized, powerful. Might fill the body. You could radiate it out into space. And as it becomes more intense, more coherent, more pervasive, the Metta Sutta, the words in the Metta Sutta are entirely literal, spreading upwards to the skies, downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. You know, up, backwards, down, front, all through the body, and blasting out into boundless space.
Mm.
You can fully dissolve into a formless, non-dual absorption in metta, in which there's no ordinary sense of self, time, space, world, subject, object, just a boundless field of loving presence. Um, you can do that. Um, there's a lot for most people. It won't be quite that clean or that sequential that quickly. But that you can do that, and you can gain insight into the emptiness of self, of space, of time, of body, of objects, of thingness. Just moving deeper with that thread of metta or compassion or joy or equanimity, right? And there's crossover between Brahmavihara and jhana phenomenology, which we could talk about. But I think that's enough for now.
No, that's great. That's great. Yeah. It could be cool to talk about, yeah, Brahmaviharas and Samadhi. To me, they feel very similar. Like it feels like these are obviously the metta feels or the Brahmaviharas feel more relational or something. It's like giving love to beings, and Samadhi feels more kind of like just there's this thing right here and then it just keeps expanding. But it almost seems like you start with a metta, it triggers some Samadhi, and then you go with that, or you start with the Samadhi and then it's like easy to jump into metta or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, samadhi is a generic term, right? So you can generate and absorb into samadhi using the breath, using metta, using a candle flame, using a mantra, using a visualization. You're moving in the direction of samadhi by stabilizing and getting your mind and body and energetics kind of coherent. Um,
Mhm.
like that's my favorite translation of samadhi these days. I usually just leave it untranslated, but collectedness, coherence, um, this bright, energized, malleable, um, and not kind of in conflict internally or like. So the Brahma Viharas do develop samadhi. They're a form of that line of development, and can be an ideal platform for moving into jhana, also for moving into insight. And jhana, like you talked earlier, does it make sense to make a clean separation between like shamatha and vipassana or insight and absorption or whatever words you want to use? No, it doesn't make sense. These like certain practices or certain ways that you're leaning at any one time, you may be kind of like more in this direction or more in that direction, but you can't really separate them.
Would you say it's like would you actually label it as like unhelpful to separate them? like
Yes.
full bracket. Okay.
Like make you can understand that you're making a pragmatic distinction. Like, okay, this session I'm locking in um, in an easeful, gentle,
Yeah.
sensible way on the breath, and I'm not okay. I'm noticing some flickering of sensations, and there's impermanence and some insight vector things going on, but I'm gonna key in and tune in to something that's leading into deeper coherence and absorption rather than something more classically insight oriented. Great. But no, you can't pull these things apart in an ultimate sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Um, yeah, I almost want to zoom it out a little bit. Um, in one of your recent notes, I think you just shared like this story that you wrote at like 2 a.m. or something like this. And
Oh yeah.
one of the passages was like the world is a flame, still aflame with greed, hatred, and delusion, and like we're still in it or something like that. And that struck
Yeah.
me. There was like this palpable like imagery of that. Like the world is deeply aflame with these. And so
It's yeah, man. It sure is. I mean, I'm quoting from the Aditya Pariyaya Sutta there.
oh,
Monks, the all is a flame. Which all is a flame? The I is a flame. Forms are a flame. Eye consciousness is a flame. Eye contact is a flame. And whatever there is that arises in dependence on eye contact, experienced as pleasure, pain, or neither pleasure nor pain, that too is a flame. A flame with what? A flame with the fire of passion, the fire of aversion, and the fire of delusion. A flame, I tell you, with birth, aging, and death, sorrows, lamentations, pains, distresses, and despairs. Likewise with the ear, nose, tongue, body, intellect. So all of our sensory consciousnesses and their ordinary modes of functioning um, can be said to be burning, right? This is the central metaphor of early Buddhist soteriology, is the three fires of passion or like attraction, attachment, aversion, pushing, pushing, pulling, holding on, and kind of not seeing clearly, right? These are the fires that cause dukkha, that keep us bound and blind,
Mhm.
cycling in samsara. And nirvana, or nibbana in the Pali, is the extinguishment of those fires, relief, ease. And the internal fire that is our uh, confused consciousness is quite literally, burning up immense amounts of fossil fuels, and like most of us, most of the time, we're not coming from, we're not functioning from our Buddha nature.
Right. Oh,
And the choices we make and the way we choose to organize our lives and our activities and our societies and our governments and our economies, they're layered on top of that burning confusion.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. 100%. Yeah, I think it's something as I sit with it, there's still like quite a bit of like wrestling or yeah, just like suffering around it in my personal experience. But like just seeing all of that, I noticed like this desire to like do something, but it almost feels like it's coming from this like need to change or like something isn't right, or something like that. So I'm curious, like for you, as someone who has gone into practice quite a bit, like it seems like you're doing a lot, or maybe not doing a lot, but like you're very active, like there's ways in which you're like shaping your life and making choices about what to, which direction you're going in your life. I'm curious, like as you go into practice, like how do you relate to that fact? Like the fact that there's so much of flame, is it just like this is the condition of humanity and there's this like deep acceptance and then like what can I do? Or I'm like curious what that relationship is for you or how you kind of perceive that fact and how that lands for you.
Yeah, I mean, it fluctuates moment to moment, day by day. And there is, because of the the insight and ease born through practice, there is a kind of unconditional acceptance and peace.
Mhm.
So, the world could burn now. I mean, it is burning, but I mean, like gamma rays come and all life on Earth is extinguished like that. And okay, there isn't what there used to be, a kind of fundamental sense of existential misalignment or like fundamental wrongness or badness or like, oh no 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 no, no. Like not quite. Like
Okay,
I still have my likes and dislikes, and
definitely, definitely.
and I'd prefer if we would wisen up and take a better course and make better choices. But there is a kind of unconditional peace, even as I'm still mad and sad and grieving. And, I am mad and sad and grieving. It comes and goes. It's not something that occupies me most of the time, but as when I wrote that, I was, up late and pissed off and thinking about the condition of the world, and, you know, still that unconditional peace is there. And still there's anger and grief and sadness and concern and,
Hmm.
yeah, deep pain. Yeah, all of that.
100%. Um, do you find that like in striving for the unconditioned or like walking the path towards that like as you kind of gain insight into the more subtle dimensions of that, do you feel like what creates this sense of unconditional peace even with all of the changing hardships of experience, or what would you attribute that to?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't think I understand. Didn't parse the question.
Yeah. I guess the question was like, do you feel like that's a byproduct of like familiarizing to some extent with the unconditioned?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yes.
is
Yeah.
there,
For acquaintance familiarization with the deathless, uh, highly recommended.
yeah, yeah. For for those who it often feels like very unattainable, what what for you like did you start out and did it feel very unattainable, or what like made this path feel more walkable for you?
Uh, Immense misery and despair and confusion and frustration and anger and rage and pain, were drivers for me. So there's this word samvega, which you could translate as, kind of urgency, grief, um, dismay, surveying the condition of sentient life and your own patterns, and the fact that having been born, we will inevitably die and have to lose everything and everyone that is near and dear. You can't even hold on to your own body, nor your mind, nor your memories, nor anything at all. Right? There's no lasting secure refuge other than letting go completely. And seeing all of that, and seeing the state of the world, and yeah, just being utterly shocked and dismayed and angry and uh, confused and sad and lonely and all of that. Uh, and I was, fortunate, unfortunate. Who knows what might have happened if this hadn't occurred. But I did have early openings, which left me in no doubt that awakening is real and possible and attainable. Not in the abstract, like if I become a yogi in a cave for 3 decades, but like no, no, no. Like I glimpsed it. I mean, there wasn't an eye glimpsing it, when it was glimpsing, but. Uh, I had some early openings and kind of unitive, energetic experiences as a teenager, and then a real glimpse, of yeah, of the unconditioned nature of mind, at 19. That, by external clock time probably only lasted a couple of seconds, but I was like, yeah, that's real. Um, okay. I reorient my whole life. That is, everything else is kind of a distraction.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then I also was fortunate to have contact and meet people, Ordinary people. Um, we're all ordinary, but people who had done it, who had walked the path. And the taking example from the literature, the Buddha, the early Sangha, all of the generations of practitioners who have practiced and realized and brought the path to degrees of accomplishment, all of the specificity that there is. Um, and I had a faith and a confidence that it was real, that it was possible, and that it was uh, what I wanted to do. And then, that was a torturous kind of relationship as well, because it's like but other things are wanting or so it wasn't simple or easy
Mhm.
at all. Even having confirmed confidence that it's real and attainable, still not easy, not simple, not pain free.
100%. Do you think for someone who doesn't have that confidence, like the sort of fantasy of the path could like bring you to the point where that confidence is built, or
Yeah,
like
yeah.
kind of you, yeah.
I, th this is one of the benefits of something like like a kind of study, right? And this is actually the entry for me. I had had some of those unitive energetic experiences that I mentioned, and then I that had some kind of non-self radical impermanence flavors.
Hmm.
And then I studied a bit of Buddhist philosophy, kind of obsessively for a little bit, and gained like a total intellectual conviction, which was still conceptual and provisional, but like I any kind of on a deep emotional and psychological and conceptual level, I couldn't deny the 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 truth of the path and the worthiness of the goal and the fact that it is possible, right? For anyone, like if you can tie your shoes, you can wake up completely. It does, you don't have to be someone special. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. It's
um,
it's very freeing to sit with that and to be like, okay, I don't have to go to India and or China and study Buddhism with the grandest master that there is or something, that this is a path that's walkable right here
right here, right
with the
now. No, yeah, in your own body and mind. It's not
uh-huh.
anywhere else.
Uh-huh.
Even if you did go find the greatest master in Asia and live in a cave, you know what you'd still be stuck with? Your own body and mind, and you'd just be doing the work there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I was struck with this sense like a week ago where I was like kind of fantasizing about the future. And then I had this like moment. I was like, oh wait, there's still gonna be body sensation, sight, sound, pleasant, unpleasant. It was just like became apparent to me of, with the five aggregates, like this is what's gonna be in the future too. It's not gonna be that different.
Until this animal drops, this is what it is. Yeah, yeah.
Amazing, amazing. I'm curious. I don't know how much of Rob's work you've gone into in the kind of soul making regards and some of the imaginal stuff, but I'm curious. I I'm trying to grapple with this idea of eros and this idea of like the difference between, craving and clinging and potential desire and eros and being pulled towards stuff. Obviously his kind of explorations are very vast of what soul making is, but I'm curious for you, how has that landed? Like, do you feel like are you making this very strong distinction between like healthy desire being pulled towards stuff and craving? And if so, like, how is that showing up for you?
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, desire is not the problem. I mean, this is a mistranslation and a misunderstanding. Tanha and chanda are distinct, right? There are wholesome desires, right? A desire for freedom, desire for well-being, desire to care for people, desire to wake up, desire for, you know, these are the motive forces that like propel our actions of body, speech, and mind. The wholesome aspiration to awaken for one's own benefit and others. This is a desire. These are things to be cultivated, encouraged, to be stoked, to burning, so that you're on fire with desire for the right things, right? Um, and that enlivens and energizes and is the fuel to get you get you where you want to go. It's the fixation, right? It's the fixation on the objects of desire. It's the problem, not the energy of it. Um, the fixation, concretization, the reification of the subject and the object, in that polarized, bifurcated relationship. That's the issue. um, and you can take that to the kind of radical extent that some Zen folks and is mainstream in Vajrayana and Dzogchen, right? Where things that are conventionally verboten or abandoned on the path and not taken back up are incorporated or included. And regarding like the imaginal and soul making, I'm familiar in broad strokes with Rob's soul making stuff, but I haven't done deep dives, and my own kind of imaginal explorations and practice have been more conventional, more orthodox, more Vajrayana and more traditional. But I see what Rob and some other folks are doing, and I'm like, you're like freestyle working with kind of the same palette.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it seems like is there just maybe yeah, one more thread on there is so we kind of have like wholesome desires, unwholesome desires, or yeah, wholesome desires, and then like craving and fixation and reification. Um, and it seems like one of the things Rob's pointing at is like sometimes he uses examples of like creative like musicians and stuff a lot of like maybe there is a fixation and maybe that fixation isn't bad, particularly in these contexts of trying to bring more beauty into the world or something like that. Like, and he kind of starts out one of his retreats, Eros Unfettered, and he basically says you can't have perception without clinging to some degree or something. And basically, like there are ways to there are ways that the soul, which he defines as a way of seeing, like an empty way of seeing, but there are ways that like soulfulness wants to be brought in through like reifying, maybe not reifying, but like yeah, like building maybe, but knowing that it's empty as you're building it, but like intentionally constructing these things. Um, so I don't know if that's yeah, do you see if there's ever like some do you do you think there's ever a good impulse to like reify intentionally and like construct and fixate towards, the creation of beauty or something like that? Or is your primary drive like just like completely how much freedom is possible and how much the lack of suffering is possible?
Yeah, I mean, there is provisional skillful construction. The path, the edifice, the practices are all fabricated, right? The language, the ideas, the concepts, the philosophies, the meditative practices themselves, whether it's jhana or deity yoga or completion stage energy stuff or Zen koan practice, all of these are skillful fabrications. Intentional, skillful, empty fabrications that align the being in such a way that they can realize their nature and wake up and be free. Um, so it's not a question of is there such a thing as skillful intentional fabrication? There certainly is. Um, it's where the limits of that are, and I don't feel the need or the desire to lay that boundary out for anyone else.
For sure.
I leave that to people's own discernment. Um, and I would disagree with Rob that there, for any perception at all to be happening, there needs to be clinging. I don't think that's true. Um, like for example, the Rigpa, right, in a Tibetan context, or the kind of unification of samadhi and insight in a Zen context. No, there ain't clinging there, and yet there's still the operation of the senses happening. Mm, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't traversed those subtleties yet. So Um,
I mean, don't take my word for it. See it for yourself. But
yeah, holding both of those as possibilities. But yeah, that's interesting.
yeah,
Um,
like I mean, to give a little more there, right? And Rob addresses this in Seeing the Freeze towards the end of the book. The idea of a an awakened consciousness I mean, even in early Buddhism, but certainly more explicitly in later Buddhism, is not you know, the cessation of consciousness while alive in a formless void, you know, like or not even that, right? That the cessation of consciousness itself, that's a temporary perception attainment, which is cool and useful and catalytic for insight.
mhm,
Um, but Siddhartha, right, who had attained nirvana, was not walking around craving and clinging and reifying to things all of the time. He while he was seeing and
yeah,
hearing
yeah.
and smelling and tasting and touching. And likewise, in later Buddhism, a Buddha's gnosis is coalescent with appearance, appearance and emptiness,
Mhm,
inseparable, simultaneous, without any reification or clinging.
mhm.
With a so a Buddha, an awakened being, is active and dynamic, not in a passive uh,
Right.
state
Yeah,
of
yeah.
blankness yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it resonates a lot that the goal is not just like complete cessation at all times like that. This feels kind of absurd to even say it. Um, yeah, I guess okay, here's something I'm grappling with and struggling to understand. I would love your perspective on. So like studying the kind of Rob's emptiness stuff and then just studying like how our phenomena experiences self lacking inherent existence. There's kind of this sense that um yeah, I guess like there's a lot of pieces that I'm like struggling to put together. One is like, okay, so seeing the lack of inherent existence of something seems to like trend towards its fading. Like as that's like seen, it kind of like fades. And then it's like, okay, but then there's also this sense kind of as we're talking, like how does one see the arising of appearances and kind of like understand them as dependently arising without them fading or something, or is there a way that like just this freedom in everyday life kind of expands because we're in this, but there's kind of like this deep kind of subtle implication or subtle sense that like I know what this ultimately is, that it's not inherently existent. Is that like I guess I'm trying to figure out what the question is here. Um at like the freedom going through daily life, interacting with all of these constructions and reifications, do you feel like that's like a byproduct of like understanding deep fading, or is that like an intentional thing that you're bringing in and that you're like practicing that view of this is empty while interacting with it?
So that may be a stage of practice where you're kind of oscillating between seeing the emptiness and things being more reified, and as a consequence of seeing emptiness, things fade and begin to cease, or they break up, right? But at further reaches, the duality between the constructed and the unconstructed, between the fabricated and the unfabricated, ceases.
Mm, mm,
And from fully vivid, everyday, Technicolor, waking, walking around, eating, sleeping, pissing, shitting, working, whatever, and the deepest, formless, timeless, spaceless cessation, and even cessation of awareness itself. Um, it's Those aren't ontologically distinct. That toward one end is not more ultimate
okay.
than the other.
Yeah.
Towards one end is not somehow more empty. Um, and the constellation of sensory features or their disappearance precisely is dependently originated. So you understand that directly in an unmediated fashion, um,
Mm,
without conceptual overlay. Um, some conditions of a sensory system have fully vivid display, and under certain other conditions, they move into conditions of formlessness, and at the far reaches cessation of appearance and of consciousness,
mm,
and all of that is equally empty. The formless not more empty than the form. And that you don't have to walk around going, okay, empty, 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 empty.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That like okay, so you're saying like kind of like the fading is kind of just a phase where like you're gonna go through the phase of seeing things as empty and then they fade, but like that's not necessarily what's gonna happen at all times. Like eventually you can see that something is rising from conditions without it fading.
Yeah, well, and there isn't when part of the coalescence of appearance and emptiness is that there isn't anyone seeing it, right?
Mm, mm,
That duality, that bifurcation between a subject and object, and a reification of space and time and distance
mhm.
and self and other, yeah, that goes away.
Yeah, yeah, fair, fair.
And the field knows itself for what it is, which is empty, independently arisen, which is two ways of
Uh-huh.
saying the same thing.
Hmm,
Yeah.
hmm. Absolutely. Um, yeah, yeah, I can understand how it can be slightly disorienting to like first really like strive for these things because it's like at least for me there's like hits of stuff and like certain kind of like subtle things start to make sense but it's like hard to like and then they get lost and then there's back in delusion. It's just like kind of this like weird back and forth of seeing not seeing like seeing dependent arising of time and then like completely not having that insight pervade other aspects of life, you know.
Yeah, it's a process. And the further you go, you'll eventually realize that all of that confused kind of knotted activity that was this display not recognizing its nature, um, you know, it was always empty. It was always dependently originated. It was always free in some sense.
Mhm. Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know if I already asked this question. Um, I'm curious as you've gone deeper on the path, you kind of mentioned like what drove you to start practicing, which is like lots of suffering and struggle and the sense of freedom and the sense of Nibbana being possible. I'm curious as you've gone further on the path, has that like what is I have the sense that you're like still practicing a lot or like this still feels very alive. And so like what is the driver now or like what is it that's driving that energizing you
Uh,
to continue deepening?
Different motivations. There's curiosity and there's a kind of playfulness and a desire to learn different methods and that there's still a drive for novelty and interest in different things in terms of practices and methods both for my just for my own interest and also as a teacher. It's good to be acquainted with a variety of things to have a broad view, but also there's still a whole lot of work left to do over here. I am very far from being free of craving and clinging. There's still plenty to work through. The further I go, it's ever clearer how much there is, and how much that is still kind of embedded and embodied and driving and distorting
Mhm.
actions. Um, so the bulk of the path, like from a Zen perspective, the bulk of the path is post awakening, right? That's how it is
Mhm.
conceived, and not just conceived. That's how it is for most people. And in traditional literature, regardless of the tradition, there are stages. There's a progression, a deepening, and a broadening, and an expanding of awakening. The farther you go, um, so there's still unresolved clinging and suffering here, and unskillfulness. So there's the stick, and then the carrot is love, devotion, play, opening, um, yeah,
Mhm.
all of the rewards. Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, I think we're starting to get towards the end. I'm feeling kind of like it. Well, the one last question before we close it out is this is something I've been curious about, and I have no conception I don't want to say no conception. There's just a lot of curiosity here, which is like how I'm trying to figure out what the question actually is or what the actual formulation is. It's something about like how part of it is like what is worth doing in this life, which is a very broad question, but like in the context of awakening, you could say deep freedom, deep Brahma work and all of this stuff, like it comes into contact with other beings and it affects them. And I don't know if this is more of like a metaphysical type question, but like do you see that just like pursuing awakening for the sake of awakening is deeply good, even if it like do you think that do you think that through this deep practice that it's like there's a desire for it to come into contact with as many people as possible, or would it be as equally good if it was just in isolation, not coming into contact with people? Maybe that's a question.
Sure. I mean, you're talking to a Mahayana guy, right? From the beginning. Like one of the things that put me onto the path was reading Shantideva's Bodhicharya Avatara, the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. Um, as long as space remains, may I likewise remain to drive away the suffering, the sorrows of the world. When the deeper you go, the more free you are in yourself, the more you see the pain, the more clearly you see the pain and the suffering, not just within yourself, but all around. And as the self-cherishing, the self-clinging diminishes, there's heartbreak, And then this was also a big motivation for me at the beginning, was this aspiration. It's not only that I'm in misery, I'm in bondage, I'm in pain. This is the condition of all sentient life, actually, is confusion and pain and suffering. And it's heartbreaking. And a lot of the motivation to continue practicing, to continue deepening, to continue reducing and dropping off my own unskillfulness is, this is this is an ongoing heartbreaking crisis. Even as things are free and open and empty and luminous and non-dual, right? There, there's a clear seeing of infinite, infinite oceans of suffering all around.
Mhm.
Um, and however far you go into practice or awakening will, by its nature, benefit not only you but everyone you come into contact with. When you desist from harm, you're benefiting others. When you deeply retreat and like if you go to you go and you're a hermit in the woods and you never see another living soul. Um, yeah, there's benefit, and also um, it depends on the person, right? Depends on the capacities, depends on the personality, depends on causes and conditions, what the manifestation, what the expression, and skillful application of path and practice are. And for better and worse, I'm drawn and have chosen to be like quite active. And like I often think and have desires to like, oh Jesus, I can I just like forest, mountains, cave. I'm so tired of this guy and all of this. Let's just let's just not. um, and that's not what I feel, for me anyway. That's not what's needed. I encourage and support anyone who does feel like they want to go live in a cave and practice and realize that way. Great, do it. But we're all different.
Mhm.
Does that answer the question?
It does, yeah, it does. It's a desire I've thought about, and I don't know how much of it is like aversion to the complexities and nuances of the world. Like, let me just go live in a cave and meditate, and how much of it is like desire to live in the world and be on the path at the same time. Um, Yeah, and it's really interesting that you say that. Yeah, I was at the airport like a couple weeks ago, and there was just like hit with the depth of suffering of so many beings, and yeah, it does seem like that becomes more in your face as the deepening's happening or something like that. Uh,
Yep,
and then
inevitably.
yeah. And then it's like the heart it becomes more apparent that keeping the heart closed is like not can't possibly be the way.
And that's just more suffering, actually. And you see that clearer. Keeping yourself closed and shut off is just more suffering for yourself and others. But
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. What a path. What a path. Amazing, amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time today. It's really enjoyable to explore these terrain with you. And yeah, if you want to share, if you have any call to share where people can find you if they want to learn more about your work.
yeah, sure. I mean, I'm pretty easy to find. I'm on social media, YouTube, Twitter, Substack, got a website, wystantbs.com. You want to, something here resonated? You want to chat? I'm now based in New York City. I'm easy to find.
Amazing. Thank you. Highly recommend.
Yeah, thank you, Ethan.
Yeah, thank you as well.